Hey guys and gals, this is Meg with another current release game review, and today I'm going to be talking about The Last of Us. Now I'm not going to go with my usual or recent template today for one main reason. Honestly, of all the games that deserve a kind of formulaic review template, The Last of Us sure as hell ain't one of them. At the risk of sounding really dramatic, The Last of Us is one of those rare games that has such a strong and impacting narrative that you're laughing and crying before you even really know you've been drawn in. I sound dramatic, right? But believe me when I say that this game has, in the first few minutes, more emotional power than most story-driven games have in their entirety. I guess I should start by saying that the story is bleak. It's terrifying. It resides in life's murky grey area at all times. It's the boat version of the story in this Life of Pi. Events are raw, and the comfort of cliches are often stripped away. It delves into really dark places, and often. So, side note, if you're easily scared, very emotional, or sensitive to themes of brutality, then The Last of Us really isn't for you. I mean, even I had a hard time at points. And yet, just as I felt that I couldn't take anymore, the game showed me something. Not necessarily hope, but a small glimmer that compelled me to drive on. The story is a journey, and not just for the characters. Speaking of which, not since Silent Hill 2's Maria have I seen characters this intensely and deeply crafted. From hardened Tess, my personal favourite, to a good man in a bad time like Henry. They all had their own personal drives, inner conflicts, dynamics, and past histories. The writing is nothing short of incredible, but it's also logical. I would make a comparison here, but I'm not going to. Tomb Raider! And though the writing is amazing, the voice actors sell every single line. And I realise calling them voice actors does the cast a bit of a disservice because they do much more, really, than act with their voice. Anyways, you believe in them. The subtle expressions of emotion, the changes in tone of voice, they all carry a kind of conviction that a game this narratively challenging requires. But the real soul of The Last of Us resides in its two core characters, Joel and Ellie. As the story evolves, they develop and grow together, stumble and pick themselves back up, both as a team and as individuals. But just like real people, they don't purely grow in positive directions, but negative ones too. The events of the game really do shape them realistically, and their relationship changes accordingly. Ultimately, I think The Last of Us does what all great stories do. It keeps it quite personal and intimate, instead of bothering itself with introducing a whole big cast of characters that aren't really adequately developed. They really focus on its core, and they flesh it out to a level that, if you're anything like me, you expect but rarely see from a story in a video game. Nothing I can say can really do this story justice. The only thing I will say is that it's flawless. The game had me at hello. I heard the first few combat situations in the game described as jarring, and I would have to agree. But this was mainly my fault, as I sort of expected to just gel straight into the gameplay with no muss, no fuss, with a sort of tutorial that takes it pathetically easy on you. I know, I'm a baby. In hindsight, I actually prefer this jar factor. I think it fits with the overall experience of the game, but at the time I didn't like it. There was raging. Raging happened. But thankfully, I didn't feel this way about the rest of the game at all. It's actually the polar opposite. The game itself is actually really balanced. It's about 50% enemy encounters and 50% crafting exploration, in which you'll find some really, really neat little collectibles that I'll talk about later. Enemies come in the form of human beings and infected, again 50-50. Both are about as terrifying as each other, and not in an unfair kind of way. You know what I'm talking about, the unfair kind of horror scenarios that survival horror practically created. You play a weedy little girl with the strength of a wet noodle, with nothing but a shoehorn to protect yourself from all kinds of monstrosities. Well, The Last of Us isn't like that. It's adequately challenging with a wide variety of enemies, all about as dangerous as each other for very different reasons, which is enough to make you sweat when trying to navigate enemy encounters. The one thing that I really enjoyed about these sort of arenas was the tactical element of play. Before I purchased and played the full game, I had a lot of people saying, you can't go in guns a-blazing, go stealth all the way, but neither tactic really worked for me at all. It wasn't until I realised that with all the crafting materials and weapons at my side, I was really able to assess the situation and deal with it in a way that I saw fit. I could stealth kill a couple of guys. I don't really know why I did that, that's more like the Assassin's Creed thing. Wrong game. I could distract a few more with a bottle and then hurl a nail bomb their way, and then just shotgun the rest of them who've probably been alerted to my presence. Of course some levels are more designed for, say, stealth than head-on combat, but it really accommodates quite a range of play styles. It gives you a lot of freedom, which is something that a lot of games promise, but don't necessarily deliver. With so many crafting materials at my disposal, I really had the whole world in my hands. The crafting system, as a result, wasn't uninspired or flat, but useful, quick, and easy. And whilst I'm on this subject, I also liked how some things like crafting and enhancing abilities with supplements or weapons with gears and tools were up to the player, but find a training manual and select skills are improved automatically. I sometimes find customization trees can be a bit of a bore, but here you're given the best of both, like a Hovis loaf. I mentioned earlier that exploration pretty much takes up the other half of play, but there's so many awesome things to find. Collectibles, for example. If you look close enough, you'll find firefly pendants. This is actually a keyring, but in my head it's a firefly pendant. You can also find comic books that Ellie likes to read, which opens up some kind of cute little dialogues here and there. But really, I think what's great about exploration is you can find a lot of artifacts littered throughout the world, ranging from the emotional to the practical. I mean, you can find information on stashes and safe codes, or what would it be actually? Sorry, safe combinations. I guess what I'm trying to say is exploration isn't really a boring affair. It really is worthwhile for a number of reasons. But I am warning you, this element of play will most likely unleash your inner pack rat. At least it did with me. My only niggling issue, besides the one I mentioned previously, is that AI partners, in-game anyway, were bizarrely unbreakable, like David Dunn. When Bill ran into a clicker, I was about to throw up in panic, but it didn't notice him, at all. At first I felt relief, but it was shortly followed by a, huh? Considering how realistic the rest of everything was, I guess it took me a little out of the moment, but it was the only thing that took me out of the moment. Maybe a basic, come hither, go away, stay command system may have made it a little less jarring, but I'm not a game designer, so shut up, Megan. Other than this, I more than enjoyed the gameplay as a whole, and it really enhanced the narrative experience in so many ways, and vice versa. Caring so much about the characters really makes already tense situations practically unbearable. If you've played the winter section, you know what I'm talking about. The attention and care paid to fully realising this verse is pretty exceptional. For example, you'll walk through an office building and everyone's desk says something about the man or woman who once sat in that chair. Safe houses tell of the final moments of his occupants, and all through the visuals and set dressing. Should I call it that? That feels like a movie term. Then there are the realistic details in the natural environment. You walk in the sand and leave footprints in the scummy, pebbly sludge, and snow on the ground glistens like a kiddie's messy art homework. The same level of detailing is also evident in the character models, but not just in their skin textures and hair textures, but in their expressions too. I mean, communicating the actor's really subtle performances through a computer-generated model has never looked so good. I also want to add here that I really love the way that Joel and Ellie changed clothes throughout their journey, but consistency was still maintained in the general colour palette and the textures and fabrics that they wore. It's like their visual identity was still intact, but realism was also stayed true to. As I mentioned before, in a video I'll link in the description, the visuals and environments are very rich. Even when you're trudging around in the dark, the visuals sort of pop. Levels really shine, I think. But maybe that's because I'm obsessed with derelict buildings and the idea of rifling through the remnants of another person's life. I think the term is nosy. Or morbidly curious? I get those two mixed up. Details, details, and details. Everywhere you look, there are small details that elevate this world from the realistic to the completely believable. The music really is about as subtly brilliant as the narrative itself. I think that I really want to focus on Gustavo's use of different instruments. Now, I didn't study music and have little to no knowledge of most instruments, save a few here and there, so I don't know what you call this thing. But he uses something that sounds like a didgeridoo. It added something primitive to combat situations. It unnerves with an unfamiliar battle horn kind of quality. And this is just one element that I noticed and honed in on. My favourite tracks are the main theme, which really represents the story so well. I mean, it's eloquently paced, somber, and really textured. I also love the final track, which kind of makes me think of Akira Yamaoka's work somehow. It has that off-kilter, cold warbling quality to it. If you're a fellow fan of Silent Hill games, I'm hoping you get what I mean here. Gustavo's music really is world class. It's on another level and has a kind of spirituality to it that, say, the Shadow of the Colossus score has. I went and bought the hard copy before the game was released. That should tell you everything you need to know right there. This is the kind of game that really saddens me to finish, because I'll only ever really experience it for the first time once. But if I could, I would replay it for the first time over and over and over again. Think Groundhog Day, although I'd probably play it the same way each and every time. No game is ever perfect, really. But I honestly think this is as close to perfection that you'll get. Somebody asked me if this game was worth all the praise and worth all the hype. And I can understand his hesitation. I mean, let's be honest, how many games have been hyped through the roof? But when they come out, they don't deliver at all. And though only you, as a gamer, can determine what you will like, what you find fun and entertaining, or what you don't, I can categorically say that yes, The Last of Us is worthy of all this praise. So that was my review. Thank you so much for watching. I hope I didn't go on too long. Please feel free to leave your comments and opinions on this game in the section below. I really want to know what everyone else thought of this game and if you're as passionate about it as I am. I'm sorry I didn't get to do the Remember Me review. I'm going to be doing that next, you know, besides the ending talk video for this video game. I don't know, I have no schedule at the moment, and E3 2013 really messed up my lack of schedule. I'm rambling now, so thanks again. I will see you all in my next video. Bye!